Hi, in this vlog I'm going to show you how I tackled doing elevators in my game. So let's just go straight in. Now, as you know, if you've been watching my videos already, I've created something called a stateful object. Now, a stateful object is something that can affect other stateful objects and be affected by other stateful objects. Basically, when one object goes into a state of being, it has the ability to change another state of object based on whatever you want them to do. So you saw that with my gates and switches a while back, and I also showed you with these turrets, which are currently inactive now. I've used the same methodology to create my elevators. Oop, PhysX3 again. The elevators have a number of ways of behaving, and they are managed by states. So you can see here I have an elevator that is simply going up and down, and I can't control it whatsoever. Now, this is very simple, and in some cases it's okay. However, I wanted to make something that would be more diverse, as I don't fully have a 100% idea of how my game levels are going to turn out, because you have to test what's fun and what's not, so I want something diverse. So let's go into the editor and see what I've done to be able to make these suckers diverse. This one's currently off, so let's go have a look. Okay, so once again, here we are in the editor, and once again you can see I'm using my trigger system, as I have been for pretty much everything in the game, to check if there is something on the elevator. Now, that elevator before, it didn't really need the trigger because it was acting on its own. So let's have a look at these for just a sec. Now you'll see there's a number of states that it can have, and basically this will be a bit confusing looking at this here, but basically what I've done is I've gone, okay, so I'm going to make 3 different types of elevators, but they're all going to work from the same code without using states. So basically the first type of elevator is a standard elevator. What you saw was a standard elevator, and basically it was set to oscillate mode, which is oscillators to just go back and forth. So let's change it quickly to just on. Now, the standard elevator can go from one point to another, and it doesn't have to even be vertical. It can be horizontal, it can be in a diagonal, it can be from one 3D point to another 3D point. This is part of being diverse, because now this effectively makes my elevator also have the ability to be a floating platform. So you can see that here I've got offset min, offset max, and offset start. Now keep in mind that this elevator looking thing, frame, it doesn't have to be that, it can be anything. That's just what I did to test this. And we have all sorts of settings like the speed and whatnot, and of course got a link to the trigger. It's got a link to the trigger, and I'll show you what that is. Oh, you saw in oscillate mode, it would stop at the level for up here for a little bit, and when it got to the bottom it would stop. That stop time can be altered as well with its wait time. So let's change this now to just on, and let's see what it does. Okay, so here we are back in the game, and you can see that our elevator is no longer oscillating. I'm just going to toggle on triggers so we can see the trigger sitting on top of the platform here. Now, similar to the sight boxes, I'll toggle them on too so you can see, for the turrets that I showed in a previous blog, the trigger boxes for the platforms have to move with the platform. So that's another thing that I had to do. Now, this is a bit different from the oscillate one. This one detects if something is on it, and it simply goes to its maximum offset. And then once you're off it, it'll go back down. So that gives a little bit more diversity. However, 2 levels ain't gonna quite cut it. So let's go back in the editor and see what we can do. Okay, so let's just grab another elevator. Let's make a new one. And I'm going to chuck it on this bottom floor here. Rotate it around like so, and I'll move it up so it's not touching the bottom. And let's move it up against this bad boy, up against the wall here. There we go, that'll do the trick. Now, next thing we need to do is we need to set up a trigger that will be for the platform. So let's just copy this trigger. Oops. I have to move that down now. That'll do. Oh. Sorry. Been a bit unco. What have I got? Oh, I've got the wrong tool selected. I wonder. I was wondering what was going on there. Alright, now we need to link those. Now I think my highest number trigger box is 10, so this one can be 11 ID, and I'll link that to this trigger ID. Nice and simple. Now you'll notice that this elevator doesn't actually have the same same parameters as the standard elevator. That's because a bunch of these parameters are only for standard. They're optional parameters only for standard. And in the same way, a floor-based elevator has those sorts of type-specific things. So I've made an object here just so that I can remember what these are for my example elevator. And with this, this is basically a floor-based elevator, so it can have a number of floors, and you can call the elevator. So to call an elevator, we need a trigger for each floor. So let's go and grab some triggers and put them on the floors. Scale it up, so if you walk, basically if you walk in front, I mean, you'd probably do this more carefully in the final game, but I'm just having a go. Where's my trigger? Let's put so that's the bottom floor. Put another floor here. Scale that out to the side as well, and we'll put one more up at the top. Move this down just a tad. Okay. I'll give those triggers IDs. So it's 12. This one can be 13. This one can be 14. Now we have to reference these triggers, of course, and the way we do that is with some custom parameters that are optional and specific to a floor-based elevator. And first we need to specify which floor shall we start on. So let's start from the second floor, which is actually floor 1 because it starts from floor 0. So looking at my example here, I've got floor start, so I can remember. I'll forget all these optional ones if I don't write that in. Start from 1. Let's type in floor trig 0. So the trigger for floor 0 is trigger 12. And I'll type in 12. Floor trig 1 is trigger 13, of course, because I did them in order. And last one, floor trig 2 is trigger 14. Any others for floors? I don't think so. Let's set the wait time to 1 second, and we'll make it, I think, slower than that. That's really fast, 0.2. Let's make it 0.025, just like the other one. We don't have a sound, and this is where we put in the mesh for the platform, etc., etc. This needs a unique name because it is a stateful object. All stateful objects need a unique name. That's elevator 3, so that's different. Elevator 2, so yep, there we go. Elevator 1's fine. That should do the trick. Let's go into the game and see how that works. Actually, first, let's change the start state because this is a floor-based elevator. It can't be standard. It has to be FLR. Let's just make it on for now. You know what oscillate will do, obviously. It'll just go between the floors continuously, but on is a bit more interesting. See you in the game. Okay, so here we are back in the game, and you can see as we specified, our elevator has its platform at level 1. Now, you might ask, well, how did it know where level 1 was? Well, that's actually based on where the trigger is. It links the triggers, and it also uses the height of the triggers as the floors. I found that quite convenient, and I was happy with how it worked. Now, I'm just going to toggle the triggers on again, and let's go to the top level using our standard elevator. And let's call the elevator up to the top. So when I trigger this guy, elevator gets called to the top. And now I'm on the elevator. Okay, so now how do I move? Well, at the moment, what I've done is I've coded, hard-coded in keys for when you're on the platform. You can press F to fall and R to rise. In the future, I plan to have a little UI that'll pop up when you're on the elevator to choose up, down, or even to just loop through them all. So that's pretty cool. Now I can call the elevator from every point. However, a floor-based elevator only has the ability to go up and down. It's very useful for just up and down elevators. You can have 100 to 1,000 level, however many levels you want, really. And so we need a waypoint elevator, which is a bit more complex, and let's go and set that up in the editor right now. Okay, back in the editor one last time. So let's just, before we go into our waypoint elevator, for the next time we see the game, let's just put this on oscillate so that we can see that in action. A bit more diversity for even each type. And let's go to this elevator that I've already created. And the reason is I've done this is because it takes a bit longer to create one of these, and you can see it's also got its own custom optional parameters that are specific to a waypoint elevator. Basically, when the object is created, it checks for these for one of these variables, and usually it's one that will always happen. For example, waypoint name, which is going to change in the future, and in this case floor start, and in this case offset start. And if these variables are there, it will then create the states for that specific type. Therefore, you're not actually wasting any performance by checking what type it is every frame. Anyway, back to our waypoint elevator. It's very similar, it works exactly the same as the floor elevator, except it doesn't use the triggers for its floors, and it isn't completely vertical. So let's have a look at our waypoints. Now I use these standard essential waypoints, and I've chucked a bunch of waypoints going around here randomly, and these represents the different waypoints that this platform points that this platform can go to. Now, I haven't got it here, but each of these platforms can optionally have a trigger attached to them, and the elevator can be called. However, as there's no way of actually getting to these points properly, except for this bottom one, I've only made it one trigger for that. So you can move these around, etc., etc. Unfortunately, because there's a problem with putting waypoints in parameters at the moment, which Essential has fixed and is going to release in the next build, I've had to hard code the getting of that, and I will change this in the next build of Essential to have that UID so I can have more. But at the moment, the UID, as shown here, is had to be hard-coded. So you see how that works basically. It's the same as the floor elevator, just the points are not only vertical, they're 3D positions. So let's have a look at those parameters. So what it'll do when it's corrected, this will be a UID and it'll get the waypoints. It'll start at a specific waypoint. Let's start it at maybe, so 1, 2, let's start it at waypoint 3. And we've only got one trigger, waypoint trigger 0, and that's trigger 10. And all the normal stuff, we got wait time, trigger ID, etc. Speed, it's a bit faster than the others, and its unique name, etc. And let's change its state to on. Now I think we should be ready to give that a go in the game. Okay, here we are in the game, and we can see our platform is at waypoint 3. So let's go and call the platform. I'll turn on triggers, of course, again. And I'll first go down. Oop, I must have done something wrong to that guy. Oh well. And let's call it. And you can see I've called the platform, and the platform will go through the triggers. Let's hop on the platform, and the same way that I did with the floors, I can press R and F to go up and down. And follow those waypoints. Now, there was a parameter to loop the waypoints, and that's why I was able to loop that completely around. However, I can disable that so that it's not looping. Not using the essential waypoints looping thing, because I'm only really using the waypoints here to define 3D points in space, not the whole interpolation thing. So I can set that, and of course also this this does oscillate as well, where it simply goes between each thing as you would like. Alright, so now you see my elevator system. It was quite involved to make this. It was, well, frankly, it was bloody hard. I first thought, oh yeah, it'll be easy, it'll just be like my doors, you know, another stateful object, but it was quite a challenge, probably because I made it a lot more difficult than it needed to be, as in I could have just made a simple elevator. However, I feel that I've done really 3 things in one here. I've made elevators that are quite diverse. I've made moving platforms, and that even allows me to make extendable bridges and stuff, so I'm pretty happy with that, and I can toy around with it. So the next thing I'm going to blog about is teleporters, so hang tight. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you later.